All right, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Theory and Theology. I'm at a hotel. I'm in San Diego. I'm hanging out. I'm having fun. I hope it's not too loud. I can hear the people through the wall talking. I hope you can't hear them too. But anyways, they're not making excessive noise. It's just I can tell. Actually, I think they're upstairs. No, I think I'm on the top floor. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, on this podcast, we talk about topics related to religion and culture, spirituality. I want to talk about a lot of cool things I'm kind of recognizing with paganism, Norse paganism. Now, something that I found really cool was this one video by, again, Wisdom of Odinn. So I'm mostly learning through his content. So he has a lot of good info. I did want to talk a little bit about music as well as some of the stuff in this video that he touched on, and kind of how I was like, I'm getting more and more surprised how similar I'm finding paganism to be to Christianity. I thought it was going to be some, honestly, I don't want to sound offensive, but I really had this idea that it was going to be some out there, like, weird, like, pray to Satan kind of, like, belief of, like, just, like, hatred and, things like that. Like, I thought it would be, like, almost sounding, like, extremist about hatred and about hurting people and stuff like that. For some reason, I kind of got that impression. And I guess maybe I shouldn't say, like, bad things about people who worship Satan, because I also know that people who worship Satan aren't necessarily all about hatred. They're about the self, but they're not about, like, hatred or against love or necessarily trying to, like, take advantage or manipulate. Same with people who practice voodoo. They're not doing that either. And people who practice witchcraft, they're not doing that either. There is just maybe some certain aspect of, maybe like curses and things like that Christianity doesn't really, I don't know, like, I feel like Christianity doesn't outwardly have curses, but I do feel like there is cursing in Christianity. I just feel like maybe people aren't as private about it, and if they're gonna curse a person, like, they kind of do it on the spot. It's not uncommon to see people being, like, put on the spot or, like, ridiculed or kind of put down because they have a different belief system that's not Christian, and people kind of, like, Bible, like, beating people with the Bible kind of thing, and trying to control others without really seeing kind of where they're coming from, like punishing people because they don't follow the same religion kind of thing. Like, I would say that happens more in Christianity. I can't say if it happens more in the other types of religions, but it happens in Christianity for sure. And I know because, Christianity, at least where I live, is more of a mainstream majority culture, so there is that privilege there. There's definitely that privilege with Christianity that you don't really see with some of these other religions. And within Christianity, how it's kind of formally taught that there's, like, all these different other bad types of religions. Like you hear stuff about, like, pagans and witchcraft and all kinds of different religions where people have more than one god, and it's very like specific to like those people, almost like people get the impression that they might not need to treat people equally, or that, they can kind of openly bash on their religions. And I don't really want to be a person who sits around and says, I'm going to be bashing this religion. Now, I do feel like there are a lot of extremists. So extremists can be good. They're not always bad, but extremists can be good. So one positive about extremists, is that they can use their ultra religious beliefs and practices to be uplifting. Like, they can be so intense about their worship and about their practices that it can be very motivating to see if they're positive about it. Like, they can do a lot of charity, a lot of giving, a lot of services in the community, a lot of like free support services for people, places where people can kind of crash and camp. And I feel like when it comes to some extremists, or people who are just very, very ultra conservative, there can be that positive. Oh my gosh, it's like people talking outside the window. There can be that positive. And so there can also be a negative of people who are extremists, of that hatred. They get very much in their own mind and can't get out of it, and they're very just one-sided. And I do feel like Christianity can take that negative conservative extremist role at times, where it's just like, we're using this method of thinking and this is all we're going to focus on, and everybody has to bend. It doesn't matter what their religion looks like or how important they find their practices, because Christianity is a mainstream kind of majority culture. It does tend to have that privilege to it, where there are like policies and laws and school rules and local rules and things like that usually will cater towards Christians, but won't really cater towards any other kind of religion. Like, for example, you might get Easter off. Of course it's a Sunday, but like, you might not have any problems getting a couple days off before Easter. You might have Christmas off. Thanksgiving you get off, but there are other holidays that you probably don't get off. You don't get a lot of different other religious holidays off. And so that's just one example where it's like, okay, like, our national calendar recognizes Christian holidays, and it recognizes those federal holidays, a couple of the other cultural types of holidays that aren't, I guess they're considered federal, but I'm talking like Cesar Chavez Day or like Columbus Day and stuff like that, that sometimes people get them off, sometimes people don't, and you have those kind of days off. But yeah, if you practice some other kind of religion that has all these other days, it's not really put into your calendar like that. Like, usually it's based on the Christian calendar. So that's just one example of privilege that's not really even talked about too much. But yeah, I really don't want to paint in a bad light people who don't believe in Christianity or don't believe in the Bible or whatever. I like learning about all kinds of stuff. So I did find that this guy, the host of Wisdom of Odinn, he basically had this cool video about people who are young Norse pagans and kind of they're practicing, like people who want to worship in paganism and want to follow the religion as a young person. And it was kind of interesting because I never thought about it, because I know, like, if somebody becomes Christian or if somebody becomes something like Christian, usually it's like, yeah, you might get some pushback, like, I mean, there are plenty of families that would push back on it. They would be like, no, like, we don't follow that religion or whatever. But I feel like with paganism, that's a whole other step. It's almost, I don't know, but it seems like it in some ways can almost be similar to, an LGBT person coming out. It's kind of like, you could still be at risk of getting kicked out of your house. You could be at risk of ridicule. Like, if you were going to a church, if your parents made you go to church, and then, people know that you're Norse pagan, they might ridicule you or say prejudiced remarks to you. You might, maybe not bring it up. It might be hard to bring up on dates or bring up at work. There's like a lot of things that, I could see similarities to between like even LGBT people and Norse pagans. Just kind of like with the whole, like, you might be forced to kind of keep more secrecy towards what you're doing for your own safety, especially when you're younger. And so some of the topics, I'll just go through some of the topics he just the titles of the topics that he had separated out. So yeah, there was that one about talking about the how the parents might react. Then he talks about answers about rituals. Talks about like the kind of characteristics of the gods, like anger, love, staying connected with the practices, with the religion. He talks about offerings. He talks about sources when you're trying to learn kind of responding to prejudice. I guess there's like, this part is not something I could really understand too much, but I mean, it's called Which God is for Me? Because I guess in Norse paganism there's like multiple gods, and some people worship certain gods. He did mention something called that sounded like he said hell, and that kind of piqued an interest for me. I thought he said one of the gods' names was hell, or that there are some people who worship hell. I wasn't certain what that meant. I need to look into that more. He talks about spirits. He talks about honoring the gods daily. He talks about finding other kind of community members who have like similarities. He talks about signs from the gods. He talks about paganism, holidays, race. Those are some of the topics he touches on, and I was really surprised. I was like, okay, like, if you just didn't know he was pagan, you would think, okay, like, he's talking about something religious just by looking at these titles. And other than the gods, like the written, when he writes out gods, other than that being plural, you would maybe never know that he was talking about paganism. Some of the stuff maybe, but like, yeah, most of it, just that he has a plural for gods instead of God. Like, if you would change all the titles to just say God, you would just assume that he was talking about Christianity almost, or some other monotheistic religion that was likely Christianity, or Judaism, or something along those lines. So I found that really interesting. That really was intriguing to me, because I was like, okay, just these titles alone, and I did listen to it as well, but just these titles alone, like, you would never know that he's talking about, you know, a Christian. Not that he's not talking about a Christian, that he's talking about paganism. So I also was introduced to some music that I really liked. I was like, wow, I like this. I'm trying to find the name of it. So there's a song in the background of one of his videos. Man, where was it? I don't know which one it is. I might have to stop this to play it. Let me see. So I don't think it was Odinn by Damhein, but Damhein was one of the artists. There's also a song Kala by Damhein. He mentioned seeing I don't know how to pronounce any of this. Heilung, and I watched a video called Tribal People React. They're reacting to Heilung music videos. I came across this Viking pagan radio called Herknunger. I don't know. And then there's a metal artist from Wardruna. His name is Einar Selvik. So he was talking kind of about like Viking culture. It was an interview. But I don't know what the song was. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to find the song. Alright, so found it. So it is the one that I read from that list. The song's name is Odinn by Damhein. So Odinn spelled Odinn by Damhein, Danheim. I'm yawning. Sorry. And this is in the video by Wisdom of Odinn. The video title is Norse Paganism Rituals. And he kind of talks about some of his own personal rituals. And I really liked the song. I was like, I found it on Spotify and I was like, it sounds really good. The part to me that was a little, like, I don't really understand the language. But I'm really into the beats, to the sound of the beats. It's really beautiful sounding to me. And the music, I like that, like those strings. I don't know what it is. It doesn't sound like a violin. Maybe I don't think it's a viola either. It's something lower, but it's not quite a cello. Maybe, I don't know. I'd love to see what instrument that is that they're playing. I really like that vibrational tone to it. It sounds like a bowed instrument, a bowed string instrument. I really don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that song, like sometimes when I'm places, or whatever, when I'm like listening to songs or watching stuff and whatever, I'll come across a song that kind of catches my attention, and that one caught my attention. I found myself feeling like, oh, I hope it's in the notes, in the description, which it was in the description. So I was like, good, cool. This song is in the description, so I was kind of like, cool. It's in the description. So yeah, but that's kind of all I have to say about that. It's just really interesting stuff, and with that, thanks for listening.